Welcome to Brian Keane Fitness Podcast, where we talk everything fitness, nutrition and mindset with your host, Brian Keane.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Brian Keane Fitness Podcast. We talk everything fitness, nutrition and mindset to help you with your goals. Today's episode is going to be a Friday Q&A. So all of the questions have came in via my Snapchat, BrianK019. So if you're not following me on there, definitely follow my Snapchat. I put up all my workouts, my meals, the supplements that I'm using, any books that I'm reading, and alongside I try and open it up every day for Q&As back and forth where we do just Snapchat Q&As. But I've also been taking a lot of the questions for the podcast via my Snapchat. So BrianK019, if you're not following me on there, I definitely recommend checking that out. So first question comes in from MaxWeb13. What's the best thing to do to get a bigger chest, define abs, and lose fat at the bottom of your stomach? Because I'm doing everything and nothing seems to be working. Okay, this is very, very similar. I'm going to answer this question so that it works for both genders, because actually building up bigger chest or bigger glutes for a girl, leaning out your stomach or building abs or flattening your stomach and losing fat at the bottom of your stomach is something that tends to be an issue for both genders. So I'm going to approach it from both sides because the answer is very similar, just that the actual parameters you work within and your calories and some of the supplements you use may be slightly different depending on your gender and depending on your specific goals. But the number one thing for everybody that's looking to either build a bigger chest or bigger glutes or flatten out their stomach or get abs or lose body fat to the stubborn area in the bottom of your stomach is getting your nutrition on point and making sure that you have everything in alignment towards that specific goal. So what that looks like, I've talked in my book, which will be out I think hopefully the end of May, early summer. The full nutrition section talks about using foods that gives your body energy, because number one thing, what happens with processed ingredients and certain ingredients of emulsifiers and preservatives, they actually take away energy from your body. So not only do you not have enough energy to train and have a higher output, but you're also more sluggish during the day, so you get less done and you actually have a poorer quality of life, which has a knock-on effect to reaching towards caffeinated drinks, sugary foods, because you need to pick me up. So normally the number one hack is using foods that are going to support your body and give you energy. So things like, real meats, good quality meats that haven't been pumped full of hormones and pumped full of shit. Good quality carbohydrates, your sweet potatoes, your rice, your baby potatoes, as long as they haven't been sprayed with a load of poor pesticides. We're pretty lucky in Ireland and the UK because we have a lot of regulations that make sure that our food hasn't been pumped full of that. But if you're listening to this in the US, I would recommend, checking out your farmers markets because it's a little bit less red tape over there. So it's something we have a bit of an advantage here, but I still check at my local butchers. I buy all of my meat in Heaney Meats in Galway, because it's locally sourced and I know that they don't put any stuff into their meat. And then I get my vegetables and my potatoes and things like that from the organic section of the grocery stores. That just tends to help give your body more energy. So when you have more energy, you can have an actual higher training output and you can feel better when you're in the gym. What happens with a lot of people, and I know this, is somebody that went through the processed food ingredients, and I used to add a lot of sweeteners and things like that to my food when I was teaching in London. I used to be so tired come the evening that my training sessions were crap, or else I used to have loads of caffeine and pre-workout just to get through my workout. Which, when you think and adding that up on a compound effect, if you're having semi-poor workouts 4 or 5 times a week, you don't actually tear enough fibers and elevate metabolism enough that your body actually ends up taking those stubborn body fat that you have and burning through it as a fuel source. And that's something you want to do. So the first thing I would do is make sure you're hacking your nutrition with good quality foods that your body understands. And then after that, you're going to base your macros and base your calories around your specific goals. So anyone that comes through my online program, there's different variations of the nutritional strategy in the program, and then I tailor it with people in the group. But there, for example, if your basic your metabolic rate is 2,000 calories, you want to be eating around the 2,000 calorie mark, maybe 2,200, 2,300, or 1,900, around that mark, and then getting your deficit from training. That's going to allow your body to burn body fat as this fuel source. You also want to keep things like protein high so that you're able to preserve the muscle you have, because once you drop protein too low and you don't repair the cells from the workouts you're doing, you can drop your metabolism, because the more muscle mass you have, the higher increase in metabolism you have. So, and that looks the same for girls. When I say muscle mass, I don't mean jacked up muscle. I mean like tone, hard, lean muscle, which is a look that a lot of people kind of strive for. So I would advise that you get your nutrition on point, use real foods, and then calculate your macros and your calories based around your specific goals. The next thing then is going to be doing your training program in alignment with this. I'm a massive fan of tension style training purely because it elevates your metabolism, means that you're going to burn more calories while you're sitting at home watching Game of Thrones or you're reading your favorite book, because you've torn fibers in the workout, and as they repair and the calories you eat go towards repair, that's one less job that they have to add to your fat stores. So when you do this over a compounded period of time, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks, your body starts to tap into its fat cells and use that as its fuel source if you're in a calorie deficit or you're getting your deficit from training. So I would make sure that you're focusing on tension style workouts when you're training. If you're going in and just lifting 3 or 4 or 5 reps and you're working within a strength parameter and you've got 4 or 5 minute rest between sets, you're probably not going to elevate your heart rate enough to burn more calories or tear enough fibers to increase metabolism. So I would advise that you make sure you align your training program with a tension style program and maybe some high intensity cardio or even steady state cardio if you're in a calorie deficit, if your energy levels are low. But assuming that you've got your nutrition on point and you're eating real foods, your energy levels shouldn't be low. But you can add in cardio to the end of your workouts. I personally prefer adding it to the end of workouts for time. Some people will split it and do it in the morning and then they'll do the workout in the evening. I find it's not practical for time to do it that way. But if you're making the problem or the mistake that I see first time gym goers make is doing their cardio first and their weight training after. There's a little bit of a catch-22 with that because you want to get your cardio in, but what happens when you weight train is you burn through more muscle glycogen, which is the stored carbohydrate that you have, and then it allows your body to get into its actual fat stores faster. So if you go through on a cardio and go on the treadmill for 40 minutes and then you do 20 or 30 minutes of weights after it, you're still burning through glycogen by the time you started your weights and you've never tapped into fat stores. So my advice would be just to flip that and do your weight training first, which is more focused on tension. It's going to burn through more muscle glycogen. Then you do your cardio at the end. Your body's already taken from its fat stores and you're going to speed up your body's ability to use fat as its fuel source. There's also supplements that can help this. Things like L-carnitine and tartrate, which can push fat cells into the mitochondria to be burned as fuel. Green tea extract, which can elevate metabolism, which means that you burn more calories. And there's lots of different things that you can do. But my advice would be add them all up. And if there's anything there that you're missing, guy or girl, and you're not getting the physique and the body composition you want, there's a sign there's something off there. It's a cause and effect. If you're not getting the result that you want, it's normally a sign that there's something off either in your nutrition, your training, and your supplements, and they're not in alignment towards your goals. Specifically if you're plateauing and not making progress. Depending on your starting point, your progress may be slower than the next person, or if you're fixing your metabolism, but you should be moving in the right direction. If you're plateauing and not moving in any direction or actually going backwards, it's a sign there's something off. Next question comes from Keen 2003 legend. What's the best positive mindset books? Okay, I've read, anyone that's been following me a while or listening to the podcast, I try and get through 2 or 3 books a week. I'm big on audiobooks. I'm not a great reader, but I'm big on audiobooks, and I listen to, 2, 3, 4 hours of an audiobook every day, particularly on my commute to work, and it works really well. You can literally turn your car into a library on wheels. So it's why one of the reasons that I get through so many audiobooks. And I've listened to a lot of mindset ones, and I've read a couple of mindset ones because some of my favorites I actually can't get on audio. My all-time favorite book is Tony Robbins' Awaken the Giant Within for actual personal development and mindset, purely because for me, at the stage when I read it in my life, it broke me through a glass ceiling of belief that I was knocking on for ages. He has a lot of sections in there about your own self-limitations that you're creating and your own belief systems that you've been built with, or that your parents have instilled in you, or that society's instilled in you, that sometimes you just need to crash through. Self-help books and mindset books are funny because it's the same with most books. It's taken me several attempts on some of my favorite books to get through it because I wasn't in a position to accept the information that was given at the time. Gary Kelleher's The One Thing took me 3 attempts and is now one of my favorite books because I read it twice, or attempted reading it twice, and I got nothing from it. But the third time I read it, I was like, oh my God, it gave me so much messages, gave me so much information that I was able to directly apply to my life right there and then, because my life was in a direction that I was able to apply the information. So sometimes giving recommendations, particularly on mindset and self-help books, is a little bit of a coin flip in the air, because depending on where your life is right now, different things will resonate with you and different things will land with you. But the book that changed everything for me was Tony Robbins' Awaken the Giant Within. There's another couple of good ones that I like. I love Ryan Holiday's The Obstacle is the Way. It's based off Stoic philosophy, but talks about how using all the bad things in your life as literally stepping stones to getting to where you want. There's a great quote in Napoleon's Hills, Think and Grow Rich, where he says, the successful people turn their obstacles into stepping stones. And the whole Ryan Holiday book, The Obstacle of the Way, is based around this philosophy of using the things that have been quote unquote against you as platforms and stepping stones to getting a better life. I also found that helped me a lot, particularly the value chain that's in that section of the book. I can't remember what chapter, but he speaks about that. When you decide what your values are, you're going to base your entire life around that. So I always make sure that Holly and my mum are the top of my value chain. Everything else goes below that. So my business, my life, even friendships and relationships with my closest people will always come below that. So it allows you to make decisions that are more congruent with who you want to be and the person you want to become, because that value chain is always in alignment. That book gave me a lot on that, because that was out of order and out of priority when I read it first, because I was competing. Holly hadn't been born yet, and I had competing in bodybuilding and fitness at the top of that value chain, which meant that I would let down on relationships with people, friends, partners, family, because again, my values were out of whack, and that helped me a lot. But again, that's where my life was at the moment in time when I read it. You may read it and get a completely different message. So there are two that I would definitely recommend. I also have a mindset section in my book, which is coming out early summer, end of May, early summer. My entire book is split into two sections. The whole first half, the first 15,000 words, is all fitness, so nutrition, supplements, training, sleep, alcohol, hydration, that whole region. And then the entire second section is all mindset, creating habits, finding your why, how to deal with negativity, anxiety, worry, stress, all of these things. So I would definitely recommend getting that when it comes out and reading that mindset section, and give me some feedback on that, and hopefully it will support you loads in your journey going forward. Question from Scano 1990. Why are your reps so slow? Is that perfect form? My reps are so slow. So anyone that follows my Snapchat particularly and my Instagram stories, I put my workouts up on my Snapchat and Instagram stories. But I put a lot of focus on tension in my training. That being said, there's a bit more explosive stuff in my GA Lean Body program. So I normally split my week in two. I'll do some from my online BKF online program, which is a mixture of giant sets, trisets, tension style training, and my GA Lean Body program is more performance based. I normally mix it during the week, just to give myself a bit of training variety. But in terms of training for my reps slow, which basically means that I'm actually performing slow reps. So I'm doing 2, 3, 4 seconds on a negative, a pause at the bottom, and 2, 3, 4 seconds on a positive, depending on the strategies that I'm using in that training session. For me, it's about tearing fibers down because it's in alignment with my goals. What happens when you work for that kind of range and tempo, one, you end up working in good form so that you're working the muscle you're trying to contract under tension time, so that you're able to actually shape and change the body composition of that muscle. So for example, if you're doing a dumbbell incline press and you're trying to work your chest, if you go too heavy, your secondary movers like your front delt and your triceps can take that movement, so you don't actually get any pectoral development on your chest. But what happens when you slow down the reps and you contract and squeeze through the muscle you're trying to work, which is your pectorals, your chest, means you can tear more fibers in that muscle group. So when you're eating a calorie surplus, you're able to build more muscle, assuming your calories are on point and you've got enough amino acids to support the repair. If you're in a calorie deficit, then you can elevate metabolism because your body has to speed up its metabolism in order to repair from the workout from the increased amount of fibers that you've torn. So the reason that I train for tension and the reason that I built my entire BKF online program under tension is because regardless of your goals, whether it's a female looking to lose body fat or a guy looking to add a lot of muscle, it's going to be the style that supports you the best, in my opinion, in terms of reducing your risk of injury, changing your actual physical body composition, and either building more lean muscle if you're in a surplus or burning more body fat through an increased metabolism in a deficit. So that's the reason that I train for that kind of tempo. Okay, next question from Leanne Welch 06. I have a really dodgy stomach. I can't drink coffee or green tea. It gives me the runs. Could I drink anything else for fat loss? I wouldn't be using coffee and green tea as your main form of fat loss. I would be using your nutrition and your training as your main form of fat loss. Things like coffee and green tea can help. even with a dodgy stomach, I would definitely get looked at. The fact that green tea is like the high-end herbal tea, it shouldn't be giving you an issue. What can happen with some people is there's normally another trigger food or trigger ingredient in your diet or in your nutrition that just happens to get offset when you have green tea or coffee or another ingredient. That being said, caffeine itself can be a high risk food, particularly for people with, say, irritable bowel syndrome or IBS, because it can spasm the intestine, and those spasms can cause cramps and diarrhea or constipation depending on how it manifests in you. But I would look into your overall nutrition. If you're eating something, some form of processed ingredients, sweeteners, different supplements that have additives and preservatives to it can also do this, can all be triggers. And then when you have your coffee and your green tea, particularly green tea, because that's not that high in caffeine, and it could be the reason that you're getting such a dodgy stomach from it. But in terms of losing fat and dropping body fat, it's going to be down to your training and your nutrition, making sure that you're in a calorie deficit or that you're eating a calorie maintenance, and then you're training to get you into a deficit, and that you're using things like meal timings, real foods, and you're using things that give your body energy and that support fat loss, as opposed to using coffee and green tea as your primary sources. Caffeine is great for fat loss because it can increase lipolysis, which means that it'll release fat from the cells and you can burn it as fuel. And green tea extra can elevate metabolism, so you'll burn more calories during the day, but they're by no means the only way in which you can lose body fat. I would make sure your nutrition and training is on point. And in terms of if it's a supplement you're looking to get or a version of a tea, I would look into things like peppermint tea first to try, if it's coming through your intestine, to relax that intestinal wall. And a supplement that is a technical fat burning supplement that doesn't have caffeine or green tea is going to be CLA, which takes about 6 weeks to work. So it's a lot slower than green tea extract and coffee or caffeine, which you'll notice an effect after, 10 days, 2 weeks. CLA tends to take about 6 weeks to work, but it is a very effective fat burning ingredient. It just takes a lot longer than those other two to have any effect on the body. Okay, next question is a screenshot question, so I don't have the name. I'm interested in becoming a personal trainer. What route should I go after I leave school? Okay, there's a load of different routes you can go. I would advise, if you want to go the traditional route, do something in the field of personal training, fitness, exercise, or nutrition, and then go on and become a personal trainer from that. So for example, my sister did sports science in Limerick. So she's a sports science degree, and she actually went on and did a PhD. She just got her PhD last week, so she's now doctor. But she went down the microbiology side. She's a lecturer in Northumbria in Newcastle. But she went down that initial route of sports science, which gave her a lot of background. If she decided to ever go down that training route, she would have been very, very good at it. A lot of my knowledge also came from, because she used to bring her books home, and I used to just read her sports science books because it was my interest. I was working as a teacher at the time, but I used to read those books out of just pure interest on physiology and anatomy, because it was where my area of curiosity was. So you could do the traditional route and go down some form of sports nutrition, sports science, exercise science in any college or course, and then go on and do your personal training from that, which would give you a very good baseline. Or alternatively, you can go down another field, another channel. You could do a business degree, which I personally did myself, and I recommend for anyone that's considering personal training to find something that allows you to set up a business, unless you plan to go into a gym and work for somebody, because a lot of good personal trainers are working part-time or working full-time in other jobs because they're not able to run their business successfully. So I would advise either doing some form of course that supports becoming a better personal trainer, or doing some form of business degree so that you at least know how a business works. And then you do your side hustle and you do your personal training on the side of that, and you start acquiring mentors, going into a mentorship program. You start reading more books on anatomy, physiology, and nutrition, and you start educating yourself and working with people and consuming all the information that supports that end goal. One of the reasons that I've been very fortunate in the area of all my business is online now, all my programs are online, but even when I was doing one-to-ones, 18 months ago, 2 years ago, I had a 6-month waiting list. That's why I had to bring in a team of people, was down to the fact that my area of curiosity was in fitness, nutrition, and health. So everything that I consumed in terms of audiobooks, physical books, YouTube channels I followed, Facebook pages I followed, Instagrams, Snapchat now, I would follow all the people that are educating you and making you a better version of that end person that you want to be. So if you want to be an amazing personal trainer in 2, 3, 4 years time or 6 months time. It doesn't matter what the time frame is. Follow the people that are educating you and supporting you in that goal. I regularly now will sit down and read a book on anatomy, physiology, or biomechanics, because it's where my area is now, because I've been training nearly 16, 17 years. My actual knowledge of training is so far subjectively advanced because I've been applying it to myself for so long. And now I'm just in an area that I'm so fortunate to be able to help and serve other people with the knowledge that I have. That's what this podcast largely is my way of trying to give back, to help people as much as I can, because there was a time when that information that other people were putting out, people like Elliot Holtz, who was a massive mentor and helped me initially when I started my business, supported me so much from his content. So it's just my way of trying to pay it forward. So I would advise you, pick your 2 or 3 or 4 people that you love their content. And I'm not saying this may not be me. This could be somebody completely different, but I would follow the people who you would trade places with, who you're like, they're an amazing trainer, they're doing great things, they're very knowledgeable, they're very informative, and then start following their content. You know, what'll happen is you may follow somebody for 2-3 weeks and realize that, do you know what, I don't understand what the fuck they're saying. You know, I've seen people on Instagram and social media that will put out content. I'm like, I don't understand that. And that there's nothing wrong with that. That's the business model. And they're obviously targeted towards other people that are higher end of the physiological scale. But make sure that you're able to consume and break down the information so that you're able to apply and contextualize it in your own life, so that when you become a personal trainer, you can do that with personal trainers. The only reason that there's lots of reasons that people will be successful. One of the reasons I can speak in myself, because you're your own best example. One of the reasons that I've been successful in my business and my career in fitness has been down to my ability to contextualize information, because I have so much information on it, because it's my area of curiosity. If you're somebody that's very curious about fitness, health, and nutrition and that whole side of things, and you spend your free time talking about it, you spend your free time thinking about it, you spend your free time training or reading or consuming information about fitness, training, and health, that's going to give you so much context when you actually go and work with people. You know, all knowledge is information plus context, because things change. Science changes. You know, I've been reading studies and books, you know, on fitness and nutrition for the last 15, 16 years. And there's things that have completely flipped. I came up in the age and the era when, you know, margarines and saturated fat was a demon. It was the worst thing you can consume because of cholesterol and heart disease. Now that's completely flipped. And people are like, no, it's good. There's no link. And everyone should have coconut oil and saturated fat and all these things. And that changes because science changes. So everything we hear is just an opinion of that moment in time. Everything we see is just a perspective of that moment in time. They change. So the ability to be able to contextualize that and apply that to different people, to see what works, to see what doesn't, to apply it in your own life, that's what's going to make you a great trainer. Everything else in the lead up to that, then, it's just going to be what journey and what path you decide to take. Whether you decide to go traditional, sports science, exercise science, or you decide to go down a business path, or you decide to just work a part-time job and study to be a personal trainer on the side, and then set up your own business on the side or work for a gym. That path may be completely different for you, you know, and there's loads of route to it. It's just a matter of what way you decide to get there. Okay, so massive thank you to everyone for downloading this episode, and thank you for the questions that came in via Snapchat, BrianK019. So if you're not following my Snapchat and you want to send any questions into the podcast, definitely head over there and follow me on there. I also open it up during the week, so you can ask me questions back and forth, and we do just Snapchat Q&As. For any more information on me, you can head over to my website, www.briankeenfitness.com. You can sign up to my blog and my newsletter on there, and my Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube is all Brian Keane Fitness. Thanks again for listening. Catch you guys soon. Hey everyone, I want to say a massive thank you for downloading this podcast. I hope you got loads of value from today's episode. For more information on my BKF online program, just send me an email, brian@briankeenfitness.com, or head over to the website or Facebook, Brian Keane Fitness, and just send me a message. The online program is everything you need to get into incredible shape. Whether you're a guy looking to build muscle and lose body fat, or a girl looking to drop a couple of dress sizes and just flatten out her stomach, the program gives you everything you need. It's my only online program where I track and monitor the first 50 people that sign up, and it has everything that that you need in terms of training, a beginner program, intermediate program, or a pro or advanced for anyone that's at a high training level, and a nutritional plan with everything you need to get into incredible shape. All the recipes, macro calculations, and systems that you need based around your goals. You'll also go into that group where I can work with you and you can ask me questions back and forth, where we do a Q&A every single week, on top of having one of my coaches work with you Monday to Friday throughout the entire 6 weeks. So for more information on that, just send me a message, and thanks again for downloading the episode.